welcome or welcome back. My name is Cassidy or Starr, and I'm a light renegade, part of a collective of Pleiadian beings bringing you information from the veil beyond. Welcome if this is your first time here. This is our 7th message from J.Epstein, and it's a big one. There's a lot of information that some viewers might find disturbing and content that is really quite heavy, so you might want to start at the beginning of the series. You might not want to step into this realm at all. There are many other videos from the Galactic Alliance and things to help you lift your spirits and make you feel like you belong in this world. But this is a lot to take in, this is a lot to handle, and I'm definitely feeling that crunch at the moment. I know I'm looking for something, I know that I'm trying to find something, and I'm being sent to look in all different types of areas of research at the moment, and I'm trying to pull together a lot of different things. And I think this is for a different purpose, something else that is going to be worked upon for this collective. Something that happened before I sat down, my obsidian sphere fell off my windowsill, and I thought, okay, that's something to note, that if you find yourself here and you resonate as having crystals or of that nature, I think grab as much energy as you can before watching these transmissions if you are choosing to stick around, and make sure you are cleansing as soon as you finish the video. That's going to be something that I'm working on as a video to bring forward, but for the meantime, just make sure that you are calling in as much light as you can once you've watched anything of this kind. And this can be anything. I realize I've been consuming a lot of dark energy because I'm having to research and watch a lot of documentaries on all sorts of things, and I'm here to transmute a lot, so I take it in and my body transmutes it. So make sure that you are cleansing as much as you can if you find yourself in that space too. A bit more of a talky talk interaction today with Jeffrey Epstein, and he had some advice for me which I was grateful for, and I think it's important to note here that this is a working relationship that I have with this being where I find myself now, and we're really having to learn to communicate and to trust each other, I think, is what I want to share, because I realize the more that he opens up about his world, the more that he gets to know about myself and my world too, which I hadn't thought about before. So that's a whole different layer and dynamic to all of this that I found interesting, of how this works behind the scenes, behind that veil, which I also wanted to note. I realize that I say in the intro, in the veil beyond, but it's not the beyond, it's here. It's like we're this close to everything, and it is in just the parameters of what we might consider space. Like time and space just isn't what we think it is, and I'm really in that at the moment. I'm really having to ground myself into some form of reality, because everything is just not what it seems at the moment, and I know that my eyes are being opened up in such a way that I kind of see the layers deeper than what is being shown, and that's a difficult space to be in. It's like I'm seeing things that other people just can't see or are unable to see at the moment, and I feel like I'm about 10 steps ahead in some of my spaces, and it's difficult. It's difficult to navigate. It's difficult to find solid ground. So please just make sure you're grounding and seeking out spaces for joy while still taking on this great work that we're doing. But there was a lot to get through today, and as I said before, there's some disturbing things in there, not super extreme, but just things that aren't easy to hear, so just be warned of that if you're not ready for this today. But I'm going to go ahead. And this was called The Truth. So Jay started with, "There is so much to consider here and what feels like little time. I've been expanding my knowledge of your world, and I see how ingrained the darkness has become. It's as though we took over everything, the entire operation from the inside out. Scanning where you are, I can see the light and the pockets of it, the people placed so strategically to help bring the light into places of such darkness. You are making a difference, each and every one of you that find yourselves here receiving these messages. Even if you feel as though you may have been a perpetrator at one time or another for this dark regime. Finding yourselves here means that you are walking the path of the light, and your soul has led you here. Because deep down you have said, no more. I will not continue to suffer. It is my time to live in the light, so thank you. Each day I am summoned back, the feeling of not belonging where I find myself now. It doesn't feel comfortable because I slept in the dark for so long. It is like waking up and opening eyes for the first time. It hurts. It hurts so much you just want to close your eyes and fall back to sleep. This is where I find myself now, each day facing layer upon layer of all that I have done. I want to fall back to sleep, but I see my place here. I am being held by those of such light and forgiveness. I know that they will not let me fall. Please know that this is a choice. At any time I could crawl back where it seems easier, where it seems as though I could find a new hole to lay in. That's what he does, they all do, this dark regime. It is always a trick, a mirage, nothing is what it seems. It's a game to them all. If you are not a higher member or part of the reigning few, you are merely a puppet, and that's what I was. A great one, a strong leader, but a puppet all the same. When you are of light, I can see how all this seems unimaginable. It doesn't make sense. So I say to you, imagine your world, your thoughts and feelings, and now flip that to the opposite. Many of you here would consider yourselves to be light workers, beings of light. I would be a dark worker, being of darkness. Where you seek light, I would seek destruction and pain. It isn't easy to imagine, I know, but when you are in it, it feels normal. You do not know any other. I wasn't aware of whom I was, what my soul actually was, and I was just looking to cure the itches of what felt like normal urgings. I knew that I was different, but I wasn't aware of just how different, and I was tricked too. I was deformed in such a way to make me believe that I was unlovable, that I wouldn't find anyone to give me love and affection that I so desperately wanted. This is where it gets tricky for me, and yeah, a little bit awkward, I'm going to be honest, but when I was watching a documentary a few nights ago now, I think I mentioned before, but in this documentary they mentioned something that I hadn't heard before about J.Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and I ran this past him before I decided to share this, and obviously he brings it up himself, so I think it's an important thing to note here, and apologies to anyone that this might offend, but what was shared in this documentary was that, I'm going to say the Nether regions, was that J.Epstein's Nether regions was, not the ordinary and shaped in such a way that would be likened to an egg, and I can only imagine. I'm a woman, so I cannot empathize as deeply as a man might hearing this, but I can imagine that this has quite a lot of such an effect on the psyche, and this was no accident. He explains here that we choose the avatar that we transcend into, and they did this to him so that he would be malleable, so that he would be a puppet in a much deeper level than the average person, and that really broke my heart. It's unimaginable, all the things that they do to keep people trapped and stuck, and yeah, anyway, I'm going to carry on. So we said, you create your skin. Well, depending where you come from, it's a choice. I had this human avatar built in such a way to make me feel of lack. I didn't consider myself attractive or desirable in any way, and this is another tactic they use against you. They make you feel worthless, so you have nothing to gain but power over others, and it festers. You seek ways for gratification because you do not believe you can interact in normal ways. Like I said before, I always felt different, but I couldn't put my finger on why. This layer of something else just hung over me, a pressure, a weight, and it would only lift the more I began to control others. So yeah, this weight would only lift as he began to control others, and I found that, really heartbreaking, and it just doesn't make sense. To investigate in darker areas of the world, as I said before, I was fascinated by death. I would watch videos of online murders, mishaps of death, and children, always the children. So this feeling and this weight would lift when he would consume resources like this, which it really boggles the mind. And it's just so strange to try and consider this to be a way of life, when it's just not how we live. And yeah, it's not easy to hear. Jay says, I know this isn't easy to hear, and I wish I could make it so, but children are so important to these dark orders on all accounts, on the many different beings I witnessed in my time in the offering houses. They hold all the power. It has always been and always will continue to be about the children. They are pure, their light and will is strong. That is something in life we miss. The light of children is the strongest power there is because they believe. They believe in it all, in themselves, they know no other. They haven't been tainted by our overruling, the darkness that we let seep in as we gather in the years. Even this ideology of birth dates and gaining an age is used against you too. But that is another layer for another day. For now, I will leave you here. I'm so sorry to all that are watching, to any of my victims by the hands of myself or those I would have considered to be my friends. We have done unspeakable crimes, and I wish there was more that I could do to take the pain away from you. I promise you will see this regime's demise. We are making sure of it. The light is winning, no matter how hard they try, and they are. Thank you for your time, Jay. There is just so much of this, and it feels like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer that is needing to be combed through. But I'll just share something that I was guided to watch yesterday, and there's I don't know if it's still around. I'm not very versed on television. I've never really watched that much, just normal TV. I watch series and things like that. So there was a program or a channel called Adult Swim, and I didn't really watch it, but I had some friends that had watched things on that from time to time. But I was guided to watch a video where someone was explaining just like these after hours times and these snippets between scheduled programmings, and the programs on this channel were already quite strange, as I gather, and just leave you feeling really uneasy. But there were snippets in between these television programs that were just really traumatic and really traumatizing, and that really does something to a person's psyche. And when Epstein mentioned the being fascinated and watching videos on death and that sort of thing, I remember a specific time when, I was a teenager and we got the internet, and, we would search for these dark corners on the internet. I think it's a natural urging to want to know more and to be fascinated in some way about death. We are of life, so death seems a point of interest. But I was just thinking about how much this is just pumped into us now, and especially children, and especially people that are susceptible to media. So what's that? That's teenagers to to everyone really. But once you start to engage in the media, it's like that's when things take a turn, I think. And it's just really scary where we find ourselves now. And I'm looking at things in terms of like games and music, everything is just pumped full of this negative energy and distortion, and that's what it is. It's a distortion. And I realized that I found myself in quite a lot of pockets of this darkness, and I think that has been, well, not that I think, I know that that's been on purpose. And I would have considered myself to be an alternative, I don't know, teenager. I have tattoos, piercings, all the rest of it. And I was around and watching these things come out on the news about, listening to certain types of music that I was listening to personally at the time. And, I would be outraged, because I'd be like, I enjoy these artists, I enjoy this music. Just because it's not the ideology of, mainstream music, why does it have to be, demonized? But now I see it in a very different light, and I can say hand on heart that I was a sad person. I was a really sad person, and finding myself in those spaces listening to that music only perpetuated my sadness. And I found myself thinking really strange things. And I don't know if this is wrong to admit here, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I think it's an important point to make. That I've mentioned before that I was in a specific relationship, and this person was, well, their bloodline is of reptilian descent. They are Welsh, and what I was told was that, this person was of reptilian descent, and they were kind of put on my path, on my journey, for me to break free from such a reign, and for that to be rippled out into, the wider spread community that we have. And for me to be able to get out of that relationship was me breaking some sort of cycle somewhere and breaking that energy. But I was thinking back to when I first met this person, and it really disturbs. I disturb myself thinking about it. But at some point or another, I remember me and this person having discussions on, how curious we were about death and what it would be like to take another's life. And we were consuming media that would relate to that, and nothing that isn't considered mainstream. But there was a program called Hannibal that I was watching at the time, and that is all just about death and murder and killing. And this is just everywhere. You think about horror movies, which I also loved. It's like I can't sit and stomach them now, because it's just too much, and I feel the energy of them. And I think that was something that I couldn't feel at the time. And when you're not aware of your own energy in your vessel, you don't realize what you're consuming. And that's what these, dark orders are counting on. So, I was a confused teenager. I felt very not of this earth and this world, and now I know that's on such a deeper level because of my journey now. But at the time, I was just like, I don't get life. And, I found myself in spaces where I was just wanting to rebel, because I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. And, these dark orders are counting on that too. And that's something that I'm seeing and investigating in terms of music, especially. It's like they're pulling at all of these confused people and pumping them through full of darker frequencies, negative frequencies, darker symbolism. And it's scary. It's really scary to think that that is happening. And I can't imagine what the statistics are for the increase in murder and that such thing, the more that we've had technology. And I was seeing visions of like souls being pulled out through laptops and phones, and I was just thinking, that's what it is. It does suck the soul out of you. And they do that. They are putting things in spaces and places every which way you look to pull the soul from the light. And it is really scary. And maybe that's an overshare, but I feel like my story is very important to all of this. And there are still spaces where I find myself just very confused as to how deep I was actually in this negative energy, and realizing how far I had to pull myself out to see the light. And I will perhaps go into this a little bit more detail in another video, but I felt like it was important to share here and now that, you know, I think there's going to be some people that find themselves here a lot more than not, that have been susceptible to this negative energy and perhaps done things that they aren't proud of. And, you know, it's like no one is free from this reign, and it takes a very strong will to not be susceptible. And I think everyone, if they take a look at themselves, can see where they may have been coerced in some way to be acting in ways that they wouldn't consider to be, you know, desirable or of heart. And, you know, we all are working through karma, but I think some of us are actually working through things that are a lot darker and a lot deeper than we can possibly imagine and fathom. So I wanted to leave space here for forgiveness in that too. And, you know, I'm having to forgive myself and this understanding that I was coming from a very wounded and confused space. And, you know, I've acted out in such a way sometimes that doesn't feel like me, you know, and I'm not the same person that I was, and I'm really having to find forgiveness for myself in that too. And, you know, now I've never committed a crime, and I haven't done anything extreme to that extent, but, you know, I haven't acted in the highest of light in all situations, and I was harming myself and my own vessel, you know, with drugs, alcohol, that sort of thing. And I'm not proud of that, but I know that it's been part of my journey. So please allow for spaces of that too. If you find yourself here and perhaps you're someone that is just coming to this understanding of everything, and you're looking to walk towards the light, know that it is possible for you, and you'll be shown your spaces of healing. Just keep calling in the light and keep calling in the love that you know is out there for you, and find those people that do love you, that do support you. And there's a lot to unpack here, and I'm sorry if this was an overshare, but I feel like we're at the point now where everything is kind of coming into balance, and I think I'm having to share my story so it makes sense to some people that might be coming from this more darker order, darker regime light. I think this is what a lot of these messages are for healing, for those that have been victims and for those that have been victims of this darker order too. So it's getting really heavy over here, everyone, and thank you so much for your support, those that have emailed in. And I have taken the comments off, as Light Renegades decided to take the comments off of these videos. This was advised by the higher teams, and, you know, we're here for conversation. If you did want to email into it, you can email me personally. My email is in the description below. But I think this is huge. I think this is a lot deeper than I was even aware of, and it's only growing bigger by the second. And I'm seeing in spaces that are things that are playing out in real time, you know, things that are happening. I'm seeing the darker nature of them now, and it's like, whoa, this is still really happening, and we are still being controlled, or trying to be controlled and coerced in such a way that is just unimaginable. And even last night when I was meditating, you know, it was like I was taken to an even deeper space, a different space, and then I just saw all these beings, just these dark beings, and it was like they were having a different angle on me, you know. I kind of faced Lucifer, faced the man himself, and, you know, there was like, there's nothing that you want. So it was like they took another tactic, and this was a tactic of, you know, we are creation itself, and I understand that, you know, where there is light there is darkness, but it was an understanding of this undercurrent of darkness just being a new layer of everything. It's like a deep cleansing, you know, of everything to start again. And I thought, is this the, you know, the ideology that they're using on people? Are they using that, you know, there needs to be a deep cleansing? And I thought, I think that's it. I think that's how they are trapping some people now, is this idea of a deep cleanse of the planet, you know, and pushing this idea of them ruling over everything because they see their way as the best way. And I think that's the agenda that they are pushing too. So just be aware of that in the spaces that you are in. And, you know, if you are a light worker and you find yourself in a realm of darkness, you know, just remind yourself that it has no hold over you, and you know, there is nothing there for you. Remind yourself of that J.Epstein saying that he's being pulled at every day, and I feel myself being pulled at every day by these things. And there's a situation in my life that is definitely very entangled up in this, that I'm having to work through and pull myself into spaces of light with, and navigate my way through it, because it's not straightforward, it's not simple, and I'm having to switch the way that I think and the way that I perceive things throughout the day in a lot of spaces. So if you find yourself there too, please know that you are not going crazy, and you are working through a lot for the collective, and I'm right there for you. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm there for that as well, because I think that we need to be pairing up in numbers where we can at this time. So I'm here for you too. And that there was a lot here today, everyone, and there's so much that I'm trying to make sense, because I'm still making sense of it myself. So I hope that this came through in a cohesive way, and apologies if it didn't, and please do email me, you know, if this is getting a bit scattered. But that's it from me today, and please go well and take care, everyone. Bye.